Today it's about rule changes, and I guess now we can say it's about rule change, Chris, because one of the major proposals that was due to be discussed and potentially voted on by owners today has been withdrawn. This is the Sky Judge proposal. There were two of them. One of them would have created a booth umpire. The other one would have created a senior technology advisor to the referee. They don't want to use the term Sky Judge for some reason, although I prefer the phrase. Regardless, it was the concept that would have been employed. And it's rare to see the proposal actually withdrawn before the meeting itself. What more typically happens is during the meeting, the proposal gets tabled, which is the fancy way of saying it's basically dead and it's unlikely that it's ever going to come back. Having it withdrawn ahead of time, to me, feels like the teams that made this proposal, and this is a couple of proposals that came from the Chargers and Ravens, I believe. It wasn't from the competition committee. I think they're trying to give the NFL a little cover here, knowing in advance that there was no way this thing was going to make it through, and they didn't want to put the NFL in a tough spot, because I think the more they talk about it and the more that we talk about it and the more that fans know about it, the more it seems like it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, they're inviting a PR backlash where people say, why in the hell aren't you doing it?
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. I do. I think when, the NFL's not prepared for this. That's what I think the bottom line is right now. I think we heard some of the comments from Troy Vincent earlier in the week, just talking about enough capable individuals being in the booth to be that Sky Judge, whatever it is. So I think last year with the pass interference calls, that scarred the NFL a little bit because of the unintended consequences that we've been talking about and everybody else has been talking about as well, to where, yes, I think a lot of people think this makes sense. This kind of takes the discussion off the table right now and doesn't shine a bright light on it because, I don't think the NFL is prepared. And I don't mean like not prepared. I just don't think they've thought it out well enough. I don't think it's far enough down the road to where they've started to think about the training and things that need to be done for that position, the Sky Judge, and how that'll work. So hopefully that'll be something that they'll continue to talk about and toy with and have a better or more concrete plan after next year, to where then it can come back to the table and then we can have a conversation about it again and maybe it happens that way. But I think that's my read. I'm similar to you there.
It is a combination of factors, I believe, and we talked earlier in the week about this pipeline concern. The pipeline gets full pretty quickly if you are paying an appropriate wage to the people who are serving as the Sky Judges. You can, if you want to, and if you're willing to, and if you value the position. That was a phrase that Dean Blandino used on the PFTPM podcast a couple of years ago, talking about the job he held at the NFL, that executive VP or senior VP of officiating. They don't value that job, meaning there is a better living to be earned by people with those skills in leaving the NFL, going to Fox, going to NBC, ESPN, CBS, wherever, and becoming their officiating expert, their rules analyst. If the NFL really wanted to bring back 17 former officials to staff this Sky Judge position, you can do it if you're willing to write the checks. That's part of it. But I talked to somebody yesterday before the proposals were withdrawn, and I was told, look, there's a concern that we're going to walk right in. Now, this is my characterization. This isn't a direct quote. But the concern is they're going to walk right into the same buzzsaw they walked into last year. And by Troy Vincent being so candid with Peter King in this week's Football Morning in America about how badly they screwed up replay review for pass interference, they don't want to just jump onto the next train without fully understanding where the train's going. And it's almost like last year's failure was so spectacular, they're gun shy now. And they're more willing to go back to what the rules were for the Rams-Saints debacle in the NFC Championship game that sparked all of this. They're willing to re-embrace that for a year in lieu of doing something else, because in their mind, something else may be worse than what they had back in 2018.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, first off, I do think they kind of rushed to, make something happen or make amends for the NFC Championship game blunder. I understand that. But I think, I'm all in favor of them tabling this Sky Judge discussion right now for those same reasons, though, Mike. I mean, that year, after the Rams Saints debacle, we were in Arizona a few months after that, right, for the owners' meetings, and we were going to, and we didn't hear a lot of talk about them. The pass interference review. What's going to happen? Is it going to come up? And it was that week where all of a sudden it sounded like a few coaches and people on the competition committee really started to talk about it and go like, hey, wait, we got to get into this a little bit. So they were unprepared that year, and it led to last year being all over the place with that rule. And I think they learned their lesson, at least from that standpoint, that they shouldn't do that again. And then with the Sky Judge and all of that, yeah, I think they want to get it right. I mean, this is not going to be an easy procedure. It's not. And getting the qualified people, I think, is important, and making sure that, the process is done the right way, and when that Sky Judge is allowed to jump in and when he's not, and all of those type of things, they all got to get figured out if we just want a smooth entertainment value type thing on TV to where we can enjoy football and not have any questions and not sit there and go, holy cow, can we get this going? This is the fifth stoppage of, play we've had over here because the Sky Judge sees something and he's overcritical or whatever it is. So I just think right now, just like the pass interference thing, Mike, I mean, I feel like the Sky Judge, this conversation came out of nowhere. I feel like we heard little blurbs of it, and then all of a sudden last week it was like, hey, we're thinking about the Sky Judge. So I don't think anybody in the NFL was really ready for it. And I don't think there's been enough deep discussion between owners, GMs, and coaches, especially, to really figure it out and hash it out and make it be done the right way.
Well, I know they've had other challenges this year with the pandemic and the effort to continue with life as normal or as close to normal as it can be. But look, it's on them to find a way to work through the issues. It's on them to recognize the importance of coming up with mechanisms to get calls right. And here's my concern. The NFL is extremely conservative, and I don't mean that politically. I mean they don't want to change. They want to continue things the way they are. They are reactive, not proactive. And now they're in a weird spot where all of this is a reaction to Rams Saints and a reaction to their mistake from last year. But now they are kind of hunkering down, afraid of making another mistake, willing to go back to 2018 procedures. And if they can kick the can successfully this year, my concern is without some incident that sparks the outcry that forces them to consider doing something, 2020 becomes 2021, becomes 2022, and nothing changes. And we're back to where some argued we should have been in the first place, and this was your case. It's a 1-in-100-year thing. Let's not overreact to it. Let's go back to the way things were, and we'll deal with it if it happens again, and it won't happen again for a long time. But let me say this. I had a conversation yesterday with someone about my concern that as legalized gambling proliferates post-pandemic,
yeah, that's right,
states are trying to balance their budgets and create tax revenue, and more people are betting their hard-earned money on football, they have to be spending the time and the money and the effort necessary to create the impression they're trying to get every call right. And I was told, when you say that, you are not 99.9% accurate. You are 100.0% accurate. That is exactly where this is heading. That is exactly where it is going. So hopefully enough people within that bubble, within that NFL bubble, will understand, hey, we need to be ahead of this one, because if we continue to take these risks with donut holes that allow us to be exposed as incompetent. See, hey, sometimes people say, well, they're just incompetent. But when you have millions of dollars being wagered on these games, at some point, somebody's going to say, is it really incompetence, or is there something else going on? Is there something deliberate happening? Is the fix in? Is somebody on the take? Is somebody betting? And then you have politicians and prosecutors and other people bothering you, right? They are probing around, investigating. They're trying to change the way you do business. You got to get ahead of that and handle it yourself, so you don't have to worry about somebody else swooping in saying, you got a mess here and we're going to clean it up for you. That's what they need to avoid, Chris.
Well, yeah, 100%. That'll be an absolute disaster. And with Sky Judge, that practice makes perfect. They got to, work out the wrinkles a little bit. Have Sky do it in preseason football. Start to feel it out, how it works that way. Again, I don't think it's something we should just dive into. We learned our lesson last year. Last year was annoying. our 100th
But hang on,
season.
hang
Yeah,
on.
go ahead.
How do you staff the position and only use it for the preseason? That's the problem. If they ever do it, they need to do it for a 1-year experiment, and they need to commit to it the whole year. You can't just say we're going to have 17 people that we throw into this booth just to see how it goes. You have to have people who are committed to it. You can't say, oh, you know what? We decided not to do it for the regular season. Thanks for the 4 weeks of work. Now go find something else to do. That's the problem with this. If you're talking about 17 people who need to be hired, it can't just be a preseason experiment.
Well, no, but I'm just talking about experiment. Just at least start there this year to where we can get and work some of the kinks out and start to realize those unintended consequences. Then, yes, if we go, wow, all right, we like this, and the NFL and the people that make these decisions start to realize, okay, we think we can do this in a smooth way. It's not too intrusive. The sky jump just involved only when he needs to, and all those type of things. Then you start to source out and go, okay, we need 17, or we need a bunch of other guys to fill this position, whatever that is. Now, here's the question I want to ask you. Like, let's just say Rams Saints debacle, that type of play happens in week 4 this year. Do you think Al Riveron's going to just buzz down this time? Like anytime we haven't No? You don't think so?
Nope. It's not going to do it. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. You know why he's not going to do it?
Why?
I believe that he thought about doing it the last time and he decided the rules prevent it from happening. I can't do it. Until the rules are changed, he's not going to break those rules deliberately. Sometimes maybe accidentally or spontaneously somebody blurts something out into that pipeline and the pipeline gets used in a way that maybe it shouldn't. And we've had moments where we're watching games and we say, New York is talking to them when maybe they shouldn't be. Right. I believe based on everything I've been told that in the moment consideration was given to doing it and a decision was made not to do it. Now, could there be in a big game, could there be somebody sitting next to Al Riveron who overrides him and says, you get on that line and you do this? It's that you have to know when to do it. It can't be on a close play. It has to be know it when you see it, egregious type of a play. So, look, to me, if you're going to stick with the pre-2019 procedures, you need to be willing to break protocol and tell the referee to drop a flag when the 7 people on the field have missed it and it truly is egregious. But I don't think that Al Riveron is comfortable discerning when to do it and when not to do it. But for a big game, standalone game, if he's got somebody sitting next to him who is higher than him on the pecking order and says, do it, then he'll do it and he can say, hey, I'm just doing what I was told. So I don't rule that out.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.